Hi, I wanted to start today's video with a little bit of maybe interaction as much as we can get with this online or distance learning. So I wanted to tell you a little bit about me if you're new to me, and if you're not, to just remind you a little bit about myself. And then I'm going to ask you guys to tell me a little bit about you in a question that I'll post on Edpuzzle. So for today, the most important people in my life are my two boys. Jeremiah is 11 and in fifth grade, and Eli is 9 and in third grade, and they attend Nuevas Fronteras. And these last 2 weeks that we have had a lot of togetherness time have been absolutely awesome. They're getting along really well. They're still brothers, so we've had our moments, but I'm really proud of the way that they have stuck together through this time. So I'm hoping that you are finding a blessing in this as well, with enjoying some family time as well. So right now I'm going to ask you a question. Tell me one thing about you, and I will read them all. So please don't write me an essay. Just let me know something about you. And if you think I already know you pretty well, either remind me of something or try and dig deep and find something that we haven't had a chance to connect about yet. Today's lesson is very similar to yesterday's lesson. Solving systems by substitution is challenging, and we wanted to make sure we gave you enough time and practice to really learn this material. So we're starting off with some warm-ups very similar to the warm-ups that we saw yesterday. So I'm going to pause and let you try these, and then I'll go over them. Example 1, evaluating. We're going to start by replacing that x with 8. We're going to keep the negative on the outside of the parentheses. For some of you, adding that 1 there as a reminder that we're really multiplying by a -1 could be helpful as we're simplifying this. So replacing that x with 8. And then first step in order of operations is grouping symbols. So I'm going to go ahead and subtract 8 from 5, which gives us a -3. And negative times a negative is positive. 1 times 3 gives us a value of 3. Go ahead and pause the video again and try the second warm-up. This one I want to show you a little bit different way to solve than I did yesterday. The way we solved yesterday was very procedural. The way I want to show you today is a little bit more number sense, and I actually got this idea from my 5th grader who saw me working on our videos, and he wanted to try and solve it himself, and he was able to number sense his way to the answer. So what I want to do instead of distributing is I want to start by canceling this 7. Remember, golden rule of algebra, whatever you do to one side, you do to the other. At some point, we do need to get that 7 to the other side so that we can get our x alone. So I'm going to leave this 4 times the quantity x minus 2. I want to remind you that those parentheses mean multiplication, because we're going to do something with that in just a minute. 19 minus 7 is 12. Now, since you paused this and tried it on your own, you probably didn't solve it this way. Just stick with me. As long as you get the answer that I did, then you're good. Your procedure is good. I just wanted to show you this other option so that you have choices. All right, and again, those parentheses mean multiplication. We've got 4 times our parentheses. I want to get that 4 away from the x as well. So I'm going to divide both sides by 4. That leaves me with the x minus 2 in parentheses, and 12 divided by 4 gives me a value of 3. Finally, I've got this minus 2, so I'm going to go ahead and add 2 to both sides, leaving me with x equals 5. Again, if you started with that distributive property and combined your like terms like what we did yesterday, that's fine. That works. There's nothing wrong with that. If you got x equals 5, then you're good. Before we continue with solving, I have a special guest who wants to say hi to you. Tell them who you are.
My name is Eli. I do not exist anymore.
All right, so let's take a look at our first example. Goal number 1, find one variable that is all alone on one side of the equal sign. This time our first equation has y all alone, so we're going to put a box around y. And then in our second equation, we're going to put a box around that same variable. We can't replace x with what y is equal to. We have to replace y, so we're going to box the same variable. Rewriting this second equation, we're going to replace y with that entire expression that y is equal to from the first equation. It said y is equal to 8 minus x. And then we'll finish off our equation equals 7. All right, now to solve this. We can't use that trick that we did on the warm-up by canceling that 2x, that piece that's outside of the parentheses, because it's not a like term with my 7 that's on the other side of the equal sign. So I do have to use distributive property to simplify here. I can't just drop the parentheses because I'm subtracting everything that's inside. So one thing that a lot of students have found helpful is to organize their work by putting a 1 as a coefficient anytime there isn't one already there. And then we can see we're multiplying everything in our parentheses by that negative 1. That 2x is outside our parentheses, so it will stay regular plain old 2x. Negative 1 times 8 gives us a negative 8. And negative 1 times negative x will give us a positive x equals 7. All right, now we've got some like terms now that those parentheses are gone. We have 2x plus 1x. Again, when you don't see a number in front of the variable, there is a 1 there. So 2x's plus 1x gives us a total of 3x. And then we'll bring down that minus 8 because that doesn't have any like terms with it, and it still equals 7. All right, now we have a two-step equation. We want to cancel that minus 8 by adding it to both sides. That leaves us with 3x on the left. 7 plus 8 gives us 15. And finally, to get our x alone, we're going to divide both sides by 3, giving us x equals 5. When solving by substitution, it takes a lot longer to solve for that first variable than the second variable. We have this equation where y is already alone, so I'm going to replace x with 5, and then I can solve for y. 8 minus 5 gives us a y value of 3. And the last thing we need to do is write our answer as an ordered pair. X always comes first. We got a value of 5 for x, and y comes second. We got a value of 3 for y. I'm going to quickly check this in the second equation. 2 times x, 2 times 5 gives me 10, minus y, 10 minus 3 gives me 7. So it checked out. So my answer is the correct solution for this system.